Hey there, everybody. I have a quick announcement before I jump into the crux, the content, the meat and potatoes of this video, as it were. On the regular channel, on the Answers with Joe channel, I am not going to be doing random Thursday videos in December. There's a few things going on. First is just the holidays, and it's just busy. Also, I kind of want to just give myself a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of a break toward the end of the year, just so I can kind of recharge my batteries a little bit. I think it's important to do that at least once or twice a year. Also, my wife is a teacher. She'll be off work. I want to be able to spend that time with her. But also, and I'm going to make a whole video about this, I'm kind of having to redo everything in my little setup here. I've got a new computer. Long story short, I'm basically going to have to redo this whole room. And I need a little bit of downtime in order to do that. Yeah, so that's just a little heads up. Want to let you guys know about it. But that's not what this video is about. This video is, it's my top 10 YouTube advice. Top 10 pieces of YouTube advice. Top 10 tips. Lots of T's in that sentiment. This is something I've been thinking about doing for a really long time. I get asked this a lot. Various people reach out and ask for advice on what I suggest if they wanted to start a YouTube channel. I've been doing this a while. I've been doing it for 5 years. I am one of the lucky people that actually gets to do this professionally, full time. Before I started doing this full time, for about a year or so, I actually worked at a company that we managed YouTube channels for major brands. Like HP was one of my clients. So I was like YouTube certified and all that kind of stuff. So I've got like a little bit extra knowledge, not just from my own experience, but from doing that as well. So I'll jump in, but just before I do, one last little disclaimer. I want to make it clear, look, that I'm basically giving my experience. If you talk to 100 different professional full-time YouTubers and ask what their top secret is for success, you will get 100 different answers. Like, no two YouTube journeys are the same. This is just one way of doing it. This is what worked for me. I can only give you my personal experience and my own perspective. So that's what you're going to get here. I invite you to listen to other people as well and take it all into account and see what works best for you. So with that, here are my top 10 tips for being successful on YouTube. My first tip, and probably the most important one to me anyway, is be consistent. Everything changed on this channel when I finally decided I'm going to put out a video every week. And I kick myself now. Like, I would be so much further along now if I had just stuck with it back when I did. But it was in the fall of 2014 when I finally said, you know what, I'm going to put out a video every Monday, even if it's literally just me talking to my phone and saying I got nothing to talk about. I'm going to put something out every Monday. And forcing myself to do that literally made all the difference for me. So there's a lot of different reasons for this. One is that it basically tells people who find your channel that you're serious about doing this thing, and that it gives them a reason to subscribe. That's the biggest one. When people find your channel and they see that you've only posted once or twice in the last 6 months or something like that, what are they going to subscribe to? My experience is if people come to your channel and they see, oh, he's put out a video every single week for like 5 years. Yeah, I'm going to subscribe to that because I know I'm going to be getting something from it. Another thing that just kind of naturally happens when you get consistent about putting out videos every week is it just forces you to find efficiencies. Jake, no, go away, go away. These efficiencies, they come in a lot of different ways. One is this whole set. I highly recommend anybody to build a set. I mean, these are IKEA shelves. 90% of YouTube sets are IKEA shelves. But it took a long time for me to get this whole setup to where it is, which is why it's going to be kind of a big deal for me to break it all down and start over again. I've got lights set up right here. I got a backlight over here, and it's all turned on by a switch back here that just, I flip the switch, all the lights come on. This was a long process. Again, I'll cover that in another video, but it was because I was putting out videos every single week that forced me to find these quicker and easier ways of doing things. Earlier on in the channel, you can go back and look if you want to. I used to kind of try to find a different place every time. I thought it'd be boring to have the same set. It turns out it's not that people like boring. They do like consistency. Your mind just kind of like makes it your happy place in a way. If you like a channel, you kind of want to see that. Like at this point, if I started doing videos in all these different locations, like I don't think people would like it. They like having this consistency. They like having this thing that's regular in their lives. And on that same point, what it does is it forces you to kind of create rituals. That's a term that gets used a lot in YouTube world, is like creating rituals around your channel. My little spinning around in my seat thing, I don't remember exactly when that got started. I think I just didn't like starting a video with just my face. I wanted to enter the video in some way. And the easiest way to do that is just to spin around in my chair as opposed to like try to hit a mark sliding in from the side or coming up from below. It all seemed kind of silly. And plus Vsauce already had the whole coming up from below thing. But even just the way that you close a video, there's a reason why a lot of YouTubers have the same closing in every single video. It's because they've just done it enough times and it's kind of rote memory at this point, and it just kind of makes it all easier. It's like one less thing to think about. These little efficiencies, these little regular things that you throw in there, they become inside jokes that people start to look for, that people start to like, and it becomes a part of the visual language of the channel that you build. It's not easy in the beginning because you're kind of building something from scratch and you're kind of feeling your way through and trying to figure out ways to make it work, and you're constantly iterating and evolving and trying to improve on your system. But it's worth it because it just helps out in a million different ways. Now, the other side of that is the algorithm actually does reward consistency in most cases. So I've actually heard stories of people who put out videos every week and then they maybe took a month off or something like that, and it took the better part of a year for their channel to recover. So there's kind of a dark side to this as well, and you'll hear a lot of YouTubers complain about this. I'm not trying to make this into a complaint or anything, but it does kind of become a grind after a while of just like constantly pumping out videos, or else your channel will go down the tubes. It becomes this whole fear thing. You got to be careful about that. You don't want to get too stuck in that grind, but that just double reiterates what I'm saying about finding efficiencies. Like, the easier you can make it to put out a video, the less torturous it becomes. Okay, now that I've droned on for that for way too long, the second piece of advice that I have is to build a library. This kind of ties into the first one. If you're consistent and you're putting out regular content, then you're going to have a library. But this also goes back to that thing, if somebody discovers your channel, you don't want to lose that person possibly being a subscriber by not having a big library of content for them to go through, because they'll find some video through search or whatever. It just gets sent to them by the algorithm or whatever. And maybe they like what they see. They like my sense of humor or my presentation style, whatever. And they say, well, what else has this guy done? Well, then they're going to go like start looking through these other videos, and eventually they'll subscribe. But another thing is, like, the more of a library you have, the more the algorithm has to work with. All that is just data that's being fed into the algorithm. The less data you have, the less the algorithm has to work with. The more library you have, the more it can suggest you. Basically, I always say people don't subscribe to a video, they subscribe to a channel. So create your channel, build your library, give them a reason to do so. If you build it, they will come. It's that simple. Okay, my third piece of advice is do collaborations, but be organic about it. If you spend more than 30 minutes looking at YouTube advice out there in the world, you're going to see something about collaborations. They're very important. A lot of people focus heavily on them. You see a lot of bigger YouTubers doing it all the time. So you start to think, well, I need to collaborate. I need to collaborate. But it becomes this very gross thing where everybody's just like constantly reaching out. Hey, you want to collab? You want to collab? You want to collab with me? You want to collab with me? And no, don't do that. That doesn't work. Collaborations are important, but you kind of have to just let it happen. And what I mean by that is basically create videos on whatever topic that you want your channel to be about. Focus on that. Focus on growing your audience. Pay attention to who your audience also follows. They'll talk about them in the comments. They'll point you to other videos that other people have done on similar topics that you've been doing. Also, if you're researching subjects, which I'm always researching subjects, you're just going to run across other channels and other YouTubers that are talking about those similar subjects. It doesn't cost anybody anything to just direct people to another video of a YouTuber. If they cover the subject really well, just point your audience to them and say, hey, if you want to learn more about this guy does it over here. Or I don't need to go too in depth on this because so-and-so over here covered this really well. I suggest you go check them out. That alone can kind of give you a little bit of a connection to these people. Especially as your channel gets bigger, people will really notice that a lot more. Kind of puts you in their orbit, and they start to look for you. And then if you are of a similar size and they're of a similar size and they have a similar audience, or there's a connection there, it'll eventually just kind of make sense and you'll just kind of do it naturally. And that's the best way to do it, because actually you become friends with these people and you start to learn how they do things. You get tips from them. You start to kind of become integrated into their communities and whatnot. Just pay attention to the other YouTubers out there that are doing the same thing you are. Direct your audience to them. Don't go into their comments and be like, hey, sub to my channel because I do the same thing. Don't do that. It's the worst. You're only going to turn everybody off. Basically, just focus on following other people in your space, covering the same topics that you do. Get to know them, engage with them here and there, and just these things will naturally happen. Okay, number 4 is to have a business model. Have some kind of idea of how you're going to make this sustainable and make money doing it. Do not rely simply on AdSense revenue. AdSense revenue is by far the most finicky type of revenue that you can make on YouTube. I personally have 4 different revenue streams. I've got AdSense, I've got sponsorships, I've got merchandise sales, which is a really small one, and then Patreon. So there's 4 different things there. And of all of them, AdSense is the one that like one month you might make a ton of money and the next month you might make nothing. And in fact, if you have a big spike in a particular month, if a video goes viral or it does really well, you can usually expect AdSense to go down after that because the algorithm's a little bit out of whack. You now have a larger influx of subscribers and they might not be as engaged, these new subscribers, as the old subscribers are. So your level of engagement actually goes down in the algorithm, which means that the algorithm will share your video less than it did before. It's really weird. It's happened to me multiple times. You got a big, huge spike. It always crashes afterwards, and it kind of sucks. So don't take this AdSense revenue that you make on a big month and go spend it on something. You're going to need it the next month. It always happens that way. Also, don't expect to make any money from any of these revenue streams, any significant money, for about a year. I mean, I think you're doing pretty well if after a year you start to make a little bit of AdSense revenue. I think it was more like 14 months before I even started getting AdSense revenue because you have to make a threshold before it starts coming in. It's really easy for me now to kind of look at where things are on the channel and forget that, I mean, for a good year and a half, it was just, I had nobody watching. I mean, the first time I ever did a live stream, there literally nobody showed up for it, and I had even like announced it and put it out there, like nobody was there. It's really hard to stay motivated during that time. But that's not the point that I'm trying to get to here. The point is, don't expect to be making a lot of money at first, but you need to have everything ready for when things start to happen. Don't wait to set up Patreon. If you even only have like 4 or 5 people supporting you on Patreon, that will grow over time. The sooner you start, the sooner that will start to grow. If you're starting a YouTube channel right now, go ahead and start Patreon. It's going to be really slow at first, but it's worth it. You need to have more than one revenue stream. And also, again, I want to point out like that my whole business model that I just said right there, every other YouTuber has a different kind of business model. They all work in different ways. Like Tim Dodd, my buddy Tim, he doesn't do sponsorships like I do. He focuses a lot more on merch that he creates himself, that's space themed and whatnot. He focuses more on live streams. He makes a lot of money doing live streams of launches and stuff, and deservedly so. But everybody's got a little bit of different business model. What I just said, what I do, it might not work for you. There's others out there. You can do a little bit of research on it. Just don't rely solely on AdSense. It's not a good way of going. Number 5 would be to focus on the audience. That's the simplest way to put this. Like a lot of YouTubers, especially in the early days, they get really, really deep into the analytics and they really like pick apart every single detail of how they're performing, how many views they're getting, how many subscribers, the CPMs, how much revenue and all that. It's good to know all that. And I'm not saying don't pay attention to it, but don't guide your channel around it. Ultimately, what you're doing is you're building an audience. So you got to listen to them. You got to give them what they want. You got to evolve to meet their needs. You got to engage with them. You got to create things for them to keep coming back for. People, especially newer YouTubers, they just get so locked into the analytics, and it can be really demoralizing. I think that's another part of it. If you focus on the audience and kind of feed off their energy and they're giving you good energy back and everything, that'll keep you going. That'll sustain you, especially in the early days when you're not making any money. That's the thing that keeps you doing what you're doing, is that positive feedback and the people who enjoy what you're doing. Don't focus on the analytics too much. It will just drag you down. Number 6 is kind of a don't more than a do. And it's something that every YouTube guru will tell you to do. And I'm telling you right now, they're all wrong. I've butted heads with people that I highly respect and care about this because they all really believe it to be true. And I just flat out I do not subscribe to this. I think it's a terrible idea. But Here we go. In every video, you have certain calls to action. It's usually subscribe, like, share, all that crap. You've heard it a million times. I do it in every single video, but I always do it at the end of my video. My philosophy is watch my video, and if you like it, at the end, I'll be like, hey, if you like this video, go check out some of these other videos that I've done, and if you like them, subscribe. Like, that's the journey I want people to go on in my channel. And that's the journey that makes most sense. That's the journey that most people take. They don't subscribe to a channel after watching one video. They just don't. The common wisdom, the conventional wisdom that you always hear people say is to put those calls to actions at the beginning of the video. So the cadence usually is like the intro, some kind of tease to the story, and then like a little intro animation, and then they'll come back and say, hey, I'm so-and-so and I do this, but before I get into the subject, go ahead and hit like and share and smash that like button and do the thing and blah, 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 and so you can come back and see all my videos. And every single time I hear somebody do that, you know what I think in my head? That's what I think in my head. Think about what you're doing there. You're telling people, hey, before I deliver something for you, do this thing for me. And you're asking them to do a pretty big thing. Subscribe to your channel so that they can see every other thing that you do. They're making a commitment to you. They're putting a ring on it. And they haven't even seen your video yet? And you're asking them to do this? Who's going to do that? It's just this annoying thing that everybody does at the beginning of the video. And I know there's a lot of people that disagree with me on this, but I am standing firm. It's the dumbest thing you can do. It doesn't work. Leave it for the end. Give them something first, and then ask for something in return. That's how things work in the world. And I don't want to take too much credit here. I really got this mostly from Destin from Smarter Every Day. What he always says at the end of his videos is, if I earned your subscription, that's the term he used. If I earned your subscription, I invite you to subscribe. And I don't use that wording necessarily, but that's my mindset. Like, I need to earn your subscription. You're not going to give me a subscription just because I tell you to at the beginning of a video when you've never seen any of my stuff before. That's asinine. Sorry, I get on my soapbox about this. It's the dumbest thing. Don't do it. It doesn't work. Moving on. Number 7. I'm heated. Number 7 is read your comments, but the block button is your friend. I hear a lot of people who just flat out say they don't read their comments. Just, why would I do that? Why would I read my comments? It's nothing but abuse. I disagree with that. I disagree with other YouTubers who don't read their comments. I have learned so much from reading the comments to my videos. My audience in general is smarter than I am. They're also dumber than I am. You know, I only have one brain. I only have a specific amount of research I've done on anything in the world. I have a specific amount of experience or perspective that I might have. Somewhere out there, when I talk about a subject, is somebody who has either worked a job in that field or spent a significant amount of time studying it or has a PhD in it. Somebody out there has spent a lot more time with the subject than I do, and I can learn from them. So not only do you learn from them, but it gives you all kinds of ideas for other videos. People are always throwing little things at me in comments, and it's like, oh yeah, you know. And you do have your followers and your super fans who are going to say wonderful things that prop you up and keep you going. You're also going to have trolls. And this is why I say the block button is your friend. For some reason, it took me the longest time to embrace banning people from my comments. I just felt like it was very anti-free speech, and it felt like a cop-out. It felt like forgive the term, but it felt like the bitch way out, you know, instead of just confronting these people. But they're not there to add anything. They're there to just kind of create chaos and mess with people. I basically eventually adopted living room rules in my comments, which is basically, if this is something that somebody said to my face in my living room, and I would think, you know what, you need to leave my house. To me, the comment section in my YouTube channel, that's my house. That's something I have built. That's my place. And if somebody comes in there and they're, you know, abusing other people or abusing me, I don't need that in there. So I ban them. It took a long time to get to that point. I really felt weird about it and bad about it for a long time. But when I eventually embraced it, I get people now that come into my comments and they're like, how are your comments so nice? Like, everybody's so nice on your channel. It's like, yeah, because I block the assholes. It's how it works. People who are not good faith actors in the comment section who are just trying to mess with people, they got no place there, and I ban them, and I don't feel the least bit bad about it. So there you go. Number 8 is embrace longer form content. Now, this might be obvious now to a lot of people who are getting into YouTube now because there's so much long form content on YouTube out there right now. When I first got into it, the general consensus was that people's attention spans are really small, and any video over 10 minutes long was just an eternity. Like, nobody could actually sit through all that. And I think that YouTube was just different back then. Like, it wasn't something that sort of competed with streaming services like Netflix and Hulu and all that. But now it is. It's something that definitely competes with that. But longer form content will help you out algorithmically. There's a YouTuber that's in the same group standard that has that sets up all my sponsorships and whatnot. Anyway, her name is Lindsay Ellis. I kind of fell down a Lindsay Ellis hole when I first discovered her. I started watching her videos. And the funny thing is, like, I would watch one video, and her videos are long. They're 30, 45 minutes, up to an hour long. They're long video essays on pop culture topics. But what I noticed was, like, I watched one of her videos, and the next day, the suggested things on the sidebar over there was just like nothing but Lindsay Ellis videos. It was insane. It was like all the algorithm was showing me. And what I figured out, or my determination on this, was that part of the algorithm is what percentage of your day are you watching any specific channel? So if you start just binge watching some channel and watch a whole bunch of it, and it winds up being like, let's just say 20% of your viewing time that day. I'm just throwing that number out. I don't know if there's a specific number in mind that the algorithm looks for, but if you spend that much time watching a video or a specific channel, the algorithm is going to be like, oh, he's super into this channel, so let's send this person more of that particular channel. That's what happened to me with Lindsay Ellis, and that's why I'm starting to see a lot of these long-form content providers, like they're kind of reaping the benefits of that. If you've got 30 minutes worth of content, don't worry about it. Put out 30 minutes worth of content. Point is, some people still think that the paradigm is shorter is better on YouTube, and that's not particularly true anymore. All right, number 9 is something that does cost a bit of money, so it might not be something that everybody can do, but I highly recommend it. And that's going to conferences, going to things like VidCon, Vid Summit. Here in Dallas, there's the Video Marketing World that I was actually a part of once upon a time. But you learn a lot going to panels and listening to people. I do have a caveat to that I'll get to in just a second. But mostly, it's about meeting other people. Every time I've gone to one of these, you meet somebody that you just stay friends with. You know, I've become friends with a lot of people who are not remotely in the same space or category of videos that I do. There's a channel called Healthy Junk Food. They have exploded in the time that I've known them. I think I met them the first time that I went to VidCon. Just met them in some room somewhere, and we started a conversation, and we got to know each other, and we became friends. We're still friends to this day. Their channel at the time, I think, had maybe 50,000 subscribers when I met them. They now have like 2.5 million. They're a huge channel, and that's just one of many different people that I could point at. And if nothing else, just hearing other people's experiences and seeing what has worked for them and what didn't work for them, you learn so much in that way. It's a good thing to do. This is going to sound a little whatever, just forgive me, but like, there's not a lot of people that do what I do. And a lot of the friends that I have that are like my personal, close friends, sometimes I struggle with having things to talk with them about because I'm just so like in this world 24/7, and they're totally not. Like, they have regular jobs that they get to go to, and they, deal with other people, and they have commutes to work and everything. And I'm just like sitting in my room in front of an IKEA shelf. Anyway, it's good to be friends with other people that are doing this thing because it's very isolating. It can be very isolating. So getting to know the people who are doing it, it's a good thing. And I said a minute ago that it's good to go to like panel discussions and talks and presentations and stuff on at these kind of conferences. But the caveat that I do have is a lot of the people in the panel discussions especially are like huge YouTubers, million+ subscribers. And I would get really frustrated going and watching these guys because essentially they don't live in the same world that the rest of us live in, especially if you're really early on in your channel and you're struggling and you're just trying to find some kind of foothold. These people with 1 million subscribers will get up there and they will say things that just don't apply to you at all. And the problem is I see a lot of people with really small channels that are like, well, Casey Neistat does this, so I'm going to do that. No, no. What works for Casey Neistat will not work for somebody with 1,000 subscribers on their channel. They just live in a different world. Another thing about the people who get up on these panel discussions is a lot of them, the reason why they're so big is because they got started in 2009. And I've actually heard people at panel discussions where somebody's like, hey, what's the secret to being successful on YouTube? And the answer was start in 2009. But anyway, that was always a big frustration that I had seeing panel discussions. A lot of times these big guys, you kind of have to read between the lines and take what works for you and what doesn't work for you, and pick and choose the right piece of advice to take. All right, last but not least, in this long video, I can tell already this is going really long. Who would have thought I would ramble about this? First one that I gave about being consistent, that's my number one piece of advice. This one is a close second, so I left it for last, and that is start now. Look, if YouTube is really something that you want to do, if it's something you're serious about, if it's something you're doing because you feel like you have something to share with the world, or you're interested in a certain topic, or you might have a little bit of expertise in a certain topic that you think you might could help other people out with, those are the reasons to do YouTube. I want to be famous and I want to be an influencer and sell stuff. I mean, if it's really what you're into, fine, but that's kind of gross to me. That's not something I'm all that interested in. I think you're doing it for the wrong reasons, and I don't think you're going to stick with it very long because it takes a long time to really become sustainable, which is why, if you do want to do this, start now. The question gets asked every single time, what's the best camera for YouTubing? What's the best program for YouTubing? What's the best blah, blah, blah? What's the best lighting setup and everything? Here's the best camera for YouTubing, the one you have. If you have a camera on your phone, which 90% sure you've got a camera on your phone, use the damn camera on your phone. Actually, go back at the very beginning of my channel. That's exactly what I did. I literally just took my phone and I set it up. I didn't even have a tripod or a gimbal for it or anything. We had a little, I don't know what you call it. It was like a three-tiered plate thing and display in the middle of our kitchen table or our dining room table. I literally just propped it up on there and recorded my videos like that. That's where I got started, and I now have this whole setup around me. That took a long time to happen. Don't put off getting started on YouTube thinking I've got to have a lighting kit and I've got to have an IKEA shelf and all that kind of stuff. Don't do that. Start with what you have. Start right now. It's going to be terrible, but you're going to learn and it's going to get better. And it's only going to get better faster the more consistent you are with it and the sooner you get started. The biggest thing that everybody says is, I wish I started sooner. And that's my biggest thing. Like I said, I got started making these kinds of videos in like 2011, 2012. I kept getting frustrated and setting it aside for months at a time and not getting serious about it. If I had gotten as serious in 2011 as I had been in 2014, I would have a much, much bigger channel right now. And I could have quit my job 3 years earlier than I actually quit it. Another big question I always get from people is that, they don't know how to edit videos, or they don't really know much about photography and that kind of thing. Look, I'm going to be completely honest. If you don't have any kind of video background, you're going to be a little bit behind. It's going to take a little bit of extra stuff to catch up on. Luckily, I had a degree in radio, TV, film. I had made a feature film back in the day. So, I mean, I knew the basic stuff about shooting and recording and editing video that a lot of people probably don't know. So if you're starting from dead ass scratch, then you definitely should bone up on that, learn a little bit about it, have some fun with it, hobby a little bit, experiment, figure out the best way to record and edit and stuff like that. There's a million different resources online. Skillshare, I talk about in my channel. They have a lot of good courses on that. But don't put that ahead of starting. Even if you're just starting by recording a single one-shot video on your phone and uploading it to YouTube, that's a start. That is something, and it's something you can build on. You have to have something to build on. But if you just keep finding new things to put in front of that starting point, you're never going to get started. It's never going to be the right time. The right time is right now. If it's something you want to do, start right now, period. So, all right, this was a very long video, but like I said, don't shy away from it too much. I hope it was helpful. I know I kind of rambled on a little bit. I always have to remind myself that I'm very, very lucky, and I'm trying, as I give this sort of advice, to go back and pay attention to the things that really matter when you're first getting started. You want to definitely focus. This probably should have been one of the numbers, but let me just throw it out there. In the beginning, your best chance for getting views is through search. whether it's you tie the whole channel down to a specific thing that people are interested in, or you just, find tangentially things that are remotely interesting to the subject at hand, but it's something that might be trending or something. So find specific topics, pick cool thumbnails and titles. I didn't even really get into that. That's a whole science, but there's entire channels that talk about that. Look them up. All right, so that's it. I'm going to try to do some more videos kind of like this, a little bit lightly edited videos for the TMI channel this month, since I'm not going to be doing any Random Thursday stuff. And I got a video coming up. Yeah, I'm gonna show exactly what I'm doing to my desk and how it's all going to go down. I'm going to share that process with you. It might not be interesting to anybody else out there, but it's a huge deal for me. Like, I'm literally taking 5 years of setup that I've been going through to get this to where it is, and I'm just starting over. I hope you guys are doing okay, and hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions in the comments, I'll try to get to them. And yeah, good luck to everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.